This video, let me introduce the concept of lists. Lists are a collection of items, and lists can store items of both the same type and different data types. For example, we can have a list of names. So I can create my list by saying a list is, we write a list using these square brackets, and then I can add my names to the list. Then I can add Jonathan, then I can say Donald. Then I say can add David, then I can add Paul, then I can add let me say Jordan. Now these are names. I can also create a list that has different types. For example, I can say things and is equal to, so we can create a list of things and that can be having both letters. So I can say tree, then say one, and then say can say apple, and then I can say can have our list having oranges, and then we can also have our list containing another list, so we can add another list that has other things, for example 1 2 3. So this is how we can be able to create lists, and as I explained, a list can have things of the same data type and it can also have things of different data types. Now we can also access elements in lists using indices. Now, lists work in a way that we can have a list of items. For example, this one that has 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 items. Now, when accessing things or items in a list, we use indices. And indices start from 0. That means that the first element in the list will have an index of 0, the next one will have an index of 1 until we go to the last. For example, if we want to access the first element in our names list, so we say print, and then I'll put in names, and then I'll put the index of 0. So when I put the index of 0, it will access the first element in the list. So let me also print the second. So the second is at index 1. So if I print names 2, this is going to print the third element in the list. So if I print the last one, so to print the last element in the list, I can say I want to print the last element by using a negative index. So I can say -1. So let me save this, and when I run this, I'm going to run python lists.py, and this is going to print our elements. As we see, we have Jonathan, who is the first at index 0, and we have Donald, who is the second at index 1, David at index 2, who is the third, and when we want to access the last, we use a negative index. Let me close this. Now we're going to look at how we can add elements to our list. So I've been able to add the following items to our list. Now, what if we want to add some items to our list? So let me first comment this. I'm going to comment this. When I comment those, I'm going to create another list that is going to be a blank list. I'm going to say my items is going to be equal to a blank list. And in this blank list, we're going to prompt users to enter things within that list. So I'm going to use a for loop in that case. So I'm going to say for I in, I want them to enter things 3 times. So I'm going to say for I in range 0 to 3. What I'll do is to prompt a name from the user. So I'll say name is equal to input. Then I'll say enter a name. So I'll say enter a name. Now the users will enter a name, and how we add elements to the end of the list, we use the append method or the append function that we call on list. So I'm going to say my items dot append, then I add the name. Now for every time we shall be adding a name, all I'm going to do is to be printing the list at that case. So I'll print my items. Now I'm going to save this and run this. So I'm going to open my terminal and I'll say python lists.py. So it's going to request us for the name. So I'm going to add the first name as John, then you see that our list is now having uh, a name John. So if I add another name, let me say Jerry, and we can see that our list now has a name Jerry and Joan. So when I add let me add Janet, when I add this name, we see that our list is now having three items, which are Joan, Jerry, and Janet. Let's look at how we can remove items from a list. Now we are having our list, so let me also comment this. Let me create another list which I'm going to call my names, and so this is going to be my names, and my names is going to be a list having let's say Jonathan, let's say Joel, let's say Brad, let's say Tracy. So if you want to remove items from a list, we use their indices. So we can remove one item from the list by accessing it with this index and then removing it. So you use what is called the del. We use del. So we can say del. Del helps us to remove an item from the list. And then we access that specific item. In that case, we can say my names. If we want to remove the first, then we'll remove an item at index 0. So we can say del my names 0. And let's try to print our list. So I'm going to print my names. When I print my names, I'm going to save and run this again. So I'm going to run Python list.py. So when I print, we see that our first item, which is Jonathan, has been removed from our list. I'm going to close this. I'm going to comment this again, and we are going to also deal with lists that contain lists. For example, we can have a list that contains other lists. So I'm going to save this and create another list. So I'm going to say my to the list. So these are two-dimensional lists. I'm going to create a list that has other lists. For example, I can have a list that contains one list. So I'm going to call this a list with 1, 2, 3, and 4. Another list that's going to contain, let's say A. I'm going to have A and B and C, D. So this list is a two-dimensional list. So we actually add a comment right here. So this is going to be a 2D list that is a list that contains other lists. Now for us to access items in such lists, we are going to use search indices. So I can say my 2D list. If I want to access the first list, I'll say we are going to access the first list by saying, so we're going to access my list, and then we access the first index, which is 0. So we're going to access 0. Now if we want to access the first item within the first list, then we shall say 0, 0. Let's try to print this out. So I'm going to add a simple print statement right here. I'm going to say print, and when I print that, I'm going to save and run our file. So this is going to print 1, and as you can see, 1 is the first number within our to-do list. So let's try to print the position of letter B within our list. So to do this, I'll say print. The first thing will be to access the list in which letter B is. So I'll say my to-do list, then the index of that is 1. Then what we shall do is to access letter B, which is that index. So we start from 0. So this is index 0 and this is index 1. So then I'll say 1. When I save this, we are going to run our python list.py, and then that's when we can access the letter B. Now we can also have a list, and we can be able to sort out that list. So let's see how we can be able to sort our list. So I'm going to first minimize it, then I'm going to create a list. So let's write a list in alphabetical order. So I'm going to write a list that's not in alphabetical order. I'm going to write B, then write that is going to be D, and then write let's say Q, let's say R, and let's say E, and let's say T. So I'm going to make this a string. After making this a string, to sort this, I'm going to use a function called sorted. So I'm going to print, let's say print sorted, then this is going to be my list. So this is going to print the list sorted in alphabetical order. So I'm going to run our file by saying python list.py. This is going to organize our list alphabetical order. Now this also works for integers and other numbers. For example, if if we made our list, so I'm going to first comment that out and create a list of numbers. So I'm going to say numbers. It's going to be a list of numbers. So I'm going to say 1, 2, 3, and let's say 33, and let's say 15, and let's say 4. Let's say actually 89. Let's number them up so that you can sort them. So I'll say print. Then I'll use the sorted function to print a list of sorted numbers. So this is going to be print sorted numbers. So when I print this, come and run our file again, it's going to organize our numbers in the right order. So this is going to return a list of numbers that are going to be sorted. Now let's look at also slicing lists. So we can slice lists so that we access a certain portion of a list. So let's use this numbers list. So I'm going to uncomment this. And after uncommenting this, I'm going to try to slice this list. Now to slice lists, we use the semicolon. So let's see how that works. So I'm going to print numbers, and then I'll use this square brackets. And what I'll have to specify is the first item. So let me say I want to access from index 0 to, let's say, index 3. So when I print this, I'm going to run this.py, python list.py, and this is going to print 1, 2, and 3. So let's see how this works. So we're having our item at index 0, which is 1, our item at index 2, which is 2, and 3 at index actually it's 0, 1, and 2. So it works like the range function. It ignores the one at index 3. So let's try it again. So if I say print, I'll print numbers. So I want to access from the second number to the fifth number. Actually, this will be from index 2. So index 2 is 3. So we shall be able to access 3. This is 2, 3, and 4. So let's try this. When I run this, it's going to give us 3, 13, 15. So it's going to ignore the number at index number 5.